It's a very compelling read. It talks a lot about sex, violence, love, and death. Today we're having Burger King. Hi friends, welcome to Makanan Meeting, where I endeavor to make book videos that are thoughtful, kind, and nuanced. Today we'll be talking about Reading the Waves by Lydia Yuknavitch. So this was quite an uncomfortable read for me because it talks a lot about violence, sex, and death. I think these are topics that people don't talk about in Singapore, where I'm from. So yeah, it's a little bit uncomfortable. But yeah, I still think it's a good read. I learned a lot and I have some reflections on it. So to summarize, it's a memoir about Lydia, who grew up in America, talks a lot about her relationship with her second husband and how he eventually took his life. And the violence she grew up with, sexual violence in school and at home. It's a very compelling read. She's a very interesting writer. I thought the use of not having commas was very interesting. It was very special. It made the story more compelling. Trigger warning. So so I thought I'll put trigger warnings in front so that if these are topics that are uncomfortable for you, maybe you don't have to read them. So there is a lot of mention of suicidal ideation, violence, domestic violence at home, sexual assault at home and in school, self-harm. So yeah, if these are topics that you're uncomfortable with, proceed with caution. But otherwise, I'd like to talk about a few things about this book. So firstly, I'd like to talk about how she mentioned in this book nobody taught her about what sex was. So it reminds me of how in school, when I was in primary school and high school, we had sexuality education, but it was largely focused on scaring us with pictures of abortions, fetuses, and I think for me at least when I was in school we didn't talk about contraception. If you're in school now, let me know if they talk about contraception and also how to prevent sexually transmitted diseases. I noticed that there was an increase in pregnancies for young people below the age of 19 between 2023 and 2024, and also in HIV cases from those under 19. I wonder if we talk more about PrEP in schools and more about contraception. Not just about contraception per se. I think consent is very important. What I've been told by some of my students is that some young boys, they watch porn in school, and I'm not sure about young girls. I let me know if it's true. I think there is a mismatch in the level of sexual exposure as students, and even if the girls watch porn, it's largely targeted at the male gaze. So I think learning consent in school is important. That was not something I learned. Let me know if you learned that in school, and if you can see at the sexual assault cases in university. I think there was a recent case in NUS. Tells you that I think consent is not something that is very largely known, and the number of molestation cases on the trains tells you that I think consent needs to be taught to young boys. I mean young girls as well, but perpetrators are men. And I think that reading about sexual violence was very uncomfortable for me just because it's always the women who suffer, at least in this book, and it's very sad. But I like that she reclaimed her story at the end with her third husband and her child. I think the other topic apart from sex and violence was about death. I think death is not something that's talked about a lot. She gave birth to the child who was stillborn, and that's very traumatic. And I think in Singapore we also don't talk a lot about miscarriages, even though it happens quite commonly. And I think it's difficult for the couple who goes through it, or the would-be mother to go through it alone. Yeah, I think it's important to have more conversations about it. I'd like to support my friends who go have miscarriages. I think death is something that's also very sanitized in Singapore. We don't hear a lot of talk about death. I have a friend who is running a charity where she aims to start conversations about death. You can check it out. I believe it's called The Life Review. And I guess in this book, what she was really searching for was love. The reason why I assume she had a lot of sex, she always said yes to sex, was because she was actually searching for love, which she couldn't find. And all she knew how to was to say yes when people asked her to. And I feel like that is also a reflection of how life is. I think we don't talk about this in Singapore, but I think a lot of young girls, they do have sex because they are just searching for love. And I don't know how, as a country or as a society, we can support people searching for love in a more healthy way. I think abstinence is not the answer, but I believe that there are solutions. Maybe I don't know of them. Yeah, let me know if you have any thoughts about this.
1 4 0 1.
Sex, violence, love, and death were themes that kept cropping up in this memoir. I'm glad I read it, even though at the beginning I wanted to put it down because it was a lot. Yeah, I think there is power in telling stories. She always emphasizes on how storytelling saved her, and how I think it's important to tell stories. In Singapore, when we write essays in schools, it's quite sanitized. I think it's important for young people, even older people, to write their stories honestly. I like to read more memoir essays. If you have a blog, let me know. You can tag me. I like to read it. And yeah, I think it's important to tell stories because you never know when your story might resonate with someone else's life, and it will help them. And that's what I found to be true when I write my story, honestly. So if you like this video, you can support me on my Ko-fi. That's ko-fi.com/makan at meaning. Or you can buy me a book. Link is in the bio. Yeah, if you have read this book, Reading the Waves by Lydia Yudavich, let me know what you think about it, or her previous book, Chronology on Water. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye!